not, or in Russia for that matter, has not been very good when it comes to COVID-19. The Russian president's entire team, the core team, turned COVID positive just before the G20, because of which he did not travel for the G20 summit as well. And now the Russian president's team is very clear that there can be no breach of COVID protocols, and is the reason why he is not staying, he's not even entering a hotel. We know that there have been many a time, Shiv, in the past when President Putin has not stayed the night, but a hotel is booked, an entire floor is booked. He goes there, he engages people and meets. This time around, that's not what's happening. He's straight away from the airport going to Hyderabad House. We hear a lot of sirens. In all probability, it would be the route for President Putin that now is going to be put in place for him to arrive at Hyderabad House from the airport. But it's a short visit because of COVID-19. Interestingly, Shiv, when I went to meet the ambassador for the interview, there was a huge distance that we had to maintain because Ambassador Kudyshev is going to be in very close proximity to President Putin. And that's why none of the officials were meeting us or any outsiders in close proximity. They were being very careful.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen over here. What is going to be interesting, Shiv, is to see whether if that big hug, the moment where we see the kind of camaraderie between Prime Minister Modi and all his counterparts or world leaders who he's really friends with, whether that's really going to happen or not, because we do know that the entire team has been very careful with regards to COVID-19 protocols, and that has not been breached. And President Putin does maintain a long distance, a huge distance from everybody. We do not know whether that's going to happen with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So I look forward to seeing those visuals.
Okay, that's going to be, it's going to be interesting, but don't be surprised if you don't see the usual, jappi between the two leaders, which is usually the case, because as Geeta has very interestingly clarified, because Geeta, I can tell you that this is a question that's been asked by a lot of people. It's been doing some buzz on social media. Why isn't Putin staying the night? He's such a good friend of ours. Why is he leaving so soon? He should stay here for a few days, blah, blah, blah. But that's different. The fact is, there's Omicron, there's a threat, you've got the, you've got other meetings that are scheduled also, and therefore President Putin is going to be leaving at about 9:40 p.m. He's already in India. The meeting between him and Prime Minister Modi will be starting any moment now, and then there will be, the summit conference, and then he will be leaving very shortly thereafter. We're taking a very, very quick break. We're back. We've got our eye on this. I promise you will not miss a single live image. Back after this very short break. Stay with us.
India Today Group, India's democratic newsroom.
You are watching India Today. You are watching India Today. You are watching India Today.
And we're taking you live now to Hyderabad House in central Delhi, where the summit meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Vladimir Putin is going to be starting in just minutes from now. Great deal of diplomatic energy rests on this brief meeting between the two world leaders. The meeting takes place in the wake of a hugely substantive and important milestone 2+2 dialogue between the two countries, the first ever time that they've engaged in this manner, and a 2+2, that is the foreign ministers and the defense ministers of both sides. They've signed deals that are very far-reaching and not just symbolic, high-value deals that in many ways play enabler to the India-Russia relationship and affirm what has basically been a relationship that has been buffeted by India's many recent diplomatic ventures, including its closeness to the United States, but is once again a reminder that the India-Russia friendship is here to stay. It's definitely not going to be evaporating or being eroded anytime soon. Prime Minister Modi has already arrived at Hyderabad House. President Putin will be arriving in just a short while from now. There are arrangements for a guard of honor that will be taking place as well. That's a wide image there of the Hyderabad House. I want to bring in Gaurav Sawant once again in on this. Sandeep Unithan and Geeta Mohan also with me live. All of us tracking this developing story. There is likely to be, Gaurav, a joint statement by the two world leaders at the end of their summit. Is that right?
There will be one, and Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla will be briefing journalists about what transpired in this meeting. But Shiv, this is one relationship, India and Russia, that's only set to grow in times to come, and it's not restricted to any one field. While it remains a fact that Russia is one of the biggest military hardware supplier to India, but that's not the only field where the two countries are cooperating, even on strategic issues, on oil, on gas, on nuclear power plants in our country. In every Sandeep Unithan and I were just having a conversation that whether it's your Gaganyaan, where you're training your cosmonauts, your astronauts are training in Russia, or any other aspect, this is one relationship, and military hardware and spares. So your tanks, you're buying some 400 or T-90, additional 400 T-90 tanks, your helicopters, your fighter jets, so many fields, from small arms to missiles, everything's coming from Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the India-Russia arms pipeline, has been one of the most dependable steel reinforced aspects of this relationship. And in fact, Sandeep, visited Russia not very long ago. He sent us this report. He filed this report about the multifarious elements in the India-Russia military trade, which, make no mistake, provides the underpinning for this very strong relationship. Take a look at Sandeep's report from Russia.
It's one of the biggest military shows of its kind in the world. Army 2021 is where Russia opens the show window to its military-industrial complex. Russia is one of India's largest weapon suppliers, with deals worth $15 billion being negotiated or under execution at this time. It will deliver the first of 5 systems of the S-400 long-range anti-aircraft missiles for the Air Force later this year, and an Akula-class nuclear-powered attack submarine and Krivak-class frigates for the Navy by 2026. In the pipeline are deals for assault rifles, light helicopters and tanks.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Battle Cry from the Army 2021 Defense Exhibition in Moscow. Today we're going to take you through the latest Russian hardware that the Indian Armed Forces are going in for, from the AK-203 assault rifle to the Sprut light tank and the Kamov 226 light helicopter.
China's aggression in Ladakh last year has added a new impetus to the Indian Army's requirements for modern military hardware. The Army needs new hardware specifically for those fighting at high altitude.
The Indian Army, in its quest for a new assault rifle, has zeroed in on the Russian AK-203. The AK-203 is a modern version of the iconic Russian rifle designed after the Second World War. We went downrange with the AK-203. A very modernized version of the AKN. You have a lot of polymer furniture, the handguards and the grip. It's got a fixed and folding and adjustable stop and a dust cover here that flips up. Now, as you know, the AK family has that comes off, but this is hinged dust cover with this is one of the biggest problems of the AK, older AK family of rifles, that they didn't have a Picatinny rail. Has a cover with an integrated Picatinny rail, and it fits in here.
The Kalashnikov company calls the AK-203 the ideal weapon for Indian conditions because it has been field tested in -50 degrees in fine sand and tropical conditions. The Indian Armed Forces need over 7 lakh rifles worth over 12,000 crore rupees. These weapons will be built at the Ordnance Factory in Amethi, Uttar Pradesh by a joint venture, Indo-Russian Rifles. Price negotiations on the contract are still underway. Meanwhile, the Indian Armed Forces have placed an order for 70,000 AK-203s this year as an emergency purchase, with the first rifles to be delivered this year itself. It's clearly a weapon they cannot wait for any longer.
The Indian Armed Forces are looking for a replacement for their Cheetah and Chetak light utility helicopters. 4 years back, they signed a deal to jointly produce the Kamov 226 Sergei. More on this machine here.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a 2015 agreement to jointly produce the Kamov 226. Both nations are currently negotiating a deal over the indigenous component of 200 helicopters to be built in India. India wants Russia to increase the indigenous content in the helicopters and also transfer critical technologies. Meanwhile, Russian Helicopters has fielded an improved variant of the Kamov 226. The Kamov 226 Climber is a lighter, stronger and modernized version of the original light multi-mission helicopter and based on India's new requirements for this.
Конкретный данный вертолет создавался под требования тендера Министерства обороны Индии.
The thing that we can say is yes, the negotiations are underway. We cannot comment on the status of the negotiations, unfortunately, but we need to say that when designing this helicopter, the specifications from the Indian Ministry of Defense were taken into account.
the gun of 226T that you see here could be the biggest example of joint technical collaboration between India and Russia since the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile. But both countries have to first iron out their differences over the deal. The Indian Army is one of the world's largest operators of the Russian-made T-72 and T-90 medium tanks. But after its deployment in Ladakh last year at heights of over 12,000 feet, it realized the requirement for a new light tank, which explains a contract for over 350 light tanks, where the Russian-built Sprut light tank is one of the front runners. Take a look at the Sprut's capabilities.
It floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee. Meet Russia's Sprut STM-1. It's a light tank, but armed with a heavy gun. A light but lethal platform that packs a formidable punch. It can engage targets on land and on the surface of the water. During the standoff in Ladakh last year, the People's Liberation Army brought to the border its new Type 15 light tank, capable of being speedily moved across the line of actual control. This year, the Indian Army formally revived its own light tank project. It aims to acquire 350 such tanks for high-altitude areas where medium tanks like the T-72 and T-90 cannot be deployed. The Army could possibly buy a smaller number of such tanks off the shelf.
What really tilts the scales in the favor of the Sprut tank is this, the 2875 125 mm main gun. This is the same gun that the Army has on the T-72 and the T-90 tanks. From the Army's point of view, is great for standardization.
The other aspect of this tank is that it shares a fire control system as the other T-series tanks and turret components. But the gun is the clincher. A gun of this size, a 125mm gun on a chassis that is 20 tons, just a little heavier than a BMP-2, is from the Army's point of view exactly what it needs to fight at high altitude.
The Indian Army has operated tanks at high altitude since 1948, but it's not had a light tank in service for the past few decades. Now that changed when the PLA deployed its own tanks in Ladakh last year. The Army has accelerated its requirement for light tanks. It wants over 350 light tanks like this one, the Russian-built Sprut STMI light amphibious tank. This is Sandeep Punithan and the Army 2021 for India Today.
We're taking a very quick break. President Putin about to arrive there. We're going to get you the images of his arrival right after this break. And we've got the best analysis of what happens when President Putin and Prime Minister meet as well. Stay with us for that.
You are watching
Imagine junk and garbage falling from the sky. This is not a hypothetical situation, this is very much real because I'm talking about space junk. Yes, that is a thing and it can fall back to Earth. So the actual term is space debris. It is also known as space junk. These are basically remains of discarded launch vehicles and spacecrafts. Now they continue to revolve and basically float around Earth at high speeds, and they pose a very heavy risk of colliding with satellites which are also there in space. So this space debris is caused when there is an explosion in space, either that or when countries purposely strike down their own satellites with missiles. So countries like Russia, China, United States and even India have shot down their own satellites, which has obviously caused more space debris. Now space debris is caused after an explosion of some sort, and after that it gains extremely high speeds, tremendous speeds at which it floats around the Earth. It basically orbits Earth and the speeds can even cross 25,000 kilometers per hour. As per experts, some of these space debris particles can orbit Earth up to 15 to 16 times in a single day. Now, because they are moving at such high speeds, no matter what the size of the space debris particle may be, it poses a very high risk of colliding and causing extreme.
This blockbuster Bollywood wedding is here. Katrina Kaif marrying Vicky Kaushal. All the preparations have begun in full swing and the guests have started trickling in. We're reporting live from Ranthambore, bringing you every twist and turn and all the inside details. Join me, Chaiti Narula, as I join you live at 7 p.m. this evening on India Today Television on this special broadcast.
Presented by Berger Weather Coat, Long Life 10. Co-presented by PolicyBazaar.com. Mobility partner Hyundai. In association with DBS Bank, Live More, Bank Less. LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Download the Make My Trip app now. Polycab, Connection Zindagi Ka. Mama Earth Onion Hair Oil, goodness inside.
Good evening and welcome. You're watching 6 p.m. Prime with me, Pooja Shali, the show where I bring issues that matter to you as citizens of this country. And today's highlight will be the Omicron variant. First, the headlines at 6. Omicron threat continues to rise. 7 fresh cases detected in Maharashtra. 9 members of a family in Jaipur infected. Total number of Omicron cases in India now stands at 21. Commotion rocks the parliament session today as Home Minister Amit Shah was briefing the House over Nagaland firing incident. Remember, 14 civilians were killed in an army operation that went awry. Mob even vandalized later a security camp, one soldier also dead. Mega Modi-Putin bilateral meeting in Delhi shortly. External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh holding a 2+2 with their counterparts. Deal for AK-203 assault rifles signed. All right, we are cutting across directly to visuals coming in from the Hyderabad House. Remember, today is a big day. The fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. These are the latest visuals on your screen that have now just come. Remember, PM meeting the visiting Russian president will primarily focus on terrorism as a common threat to both countries and the region. So we are also expecting some important deals that are going to be signed as well. So these are the latest visuals of the vehicles that are coming in. So global stability will be the focus. We're also being told that the Russian President Vladimir Putin's brief visit, so it's not going to be a very long time, it's just about one day, but will be an important visit to India and is being watched globally. Prime Minister Narendra Modi there awaiting the arrival of the Russian President Vladimir Putin. All right, let's go across to our Foreign Affairs editor, Geeta Mohan, for the latest. Geeta, the visuals on our screen presently of the Russian president arriving and Prime Minister Narendra Modi there to receive him amid, of course, tightened security. It's going to be a brief visit, just about a few hours. Why should it be considered so significant? As we see Vladimir Putin and Narendra Modi walking for a photo opportunity, all smiles today evening there at the Hyderabad House, and therefore at this point a handshake there. The India-Russia handshake. And while Geeta Mohan stays with us, Gaurav Sawant also joining me for the latest on that. Gaurav, all smiles, all handshake, but how significant will it be for India?
This is an extremely significant visit of the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, it may be short in time, duration may be less, but it's extremely significant given what all India and Russia intend to achieve in this visit and times to come. And when you look at not just military hardware, but India-Russia relationship goes forward in multiple directions. If you look at military hardware, India's made a very strong point going ahead with the S-400 missile defense system despite American sanctions. Look at these images of Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi walking together, walking strong. There will be a statement that will be made. Now, what is the significance of this visit? Extremely important that India-Russia defense ties, strategic ties, they move forward in times to come. So whether it's buying missiles from Russia or additional S-400 or additional T-90 tanks, or maybe even light tanks that India intends to buy from Russia, or additional Su-30 MKI fighter jets or MiG-29 fighter jets, in every aspect, Pooja, this relationship is now moving forward very strongly.
Let's also talk about the historical aspect, a historical friendship, seen its ups and downs. But for the defense sector today, do you think Russia will be seen as the biggest ally, Gaurav?
It indeed is one of the most dependable allies that India has. And why am I saying that? This is December 1971. This is December 2021. In December 1971, when India split Pakistan into two and East Pakistan became Bangladesh, India-Russia defense ties or the strategic ties from then, they've carried on and they've withstood, the test of time. Look at...
आपने जिस प्रकार से भारत के प्रति आपका लगाव है, इसका ये आपकी जो निजी प्रतिबद्धता है, उसका ये एक प्रकार से प्रतीक है। और भारत-रशिया संबंधों का कितना महत्व है, वो इससे साफ होता है और इसके लिए मैं आपका बहुत आभारी हूँ।
Ваше превосходительство, мой дорогой друг, президент Российской Федерации Владимир Владимирович Путин, приветствую вас в теме для 21-го ежегодного двустороннего саммита. Я также приветствую всех членов делегации Российской Федерации. Я знаю, что за последние практически 2 года это только ваш второй визит за рубежом. Это свидетельствует о вашей личной приверженности нашим отношениям. Несмотря на все сложности, связанные с пандемией, вы посещаете Индию. Это говорит о вашей любви к Индии.
कोविड की चुनौतियों के बावजूद भारत और रूस के संबंधों की रफ्तार में कोई बदलाव नहीं आया है। हमारी स्पेशल एंड प्रिविलेज स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप निरंतर मजबूत होती गई है।
Несмотря на сложности пандемии, нет никаких изменений в темпе развития наших двусторонних отношений между Индией и Россией. Наше особо привилегированное стратегическое партнерство продолжает укрепляться.
कोविड के खिलाफ लड़ाई में भी दोनों देशों के बीच बेहतरीन सहयोग रहा, चाहे वैक्सीन ट्रायल्स और उत्पादन में हो, मानवीय सहायता के लिए हो या एक दूसरे के नागरिकों की देश वापसी के लिए हो।
В борьбе против ковид сотрудничество между нашими странами было тесным, будто это испытание и производство вакцин, гуманитарная помощь или помощь людям вернуться на свою родину в сложное время.
एक्सेलेंसी, वर्ष 2021 हमारे द्विपक्षीय संबंधों के लिए कई मायनों में महत्वपूर्ण है। इस वर्ष 1971 की ट्रीटी ऑफ पीस, फ्रेंडशिप एंड कोऑपरेशन के 5 दशक और हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के 2 दशक पूरे हो रहे हैं। इस विशेष वर्ष में आपके साथ फिर मिल पाना मेरे लिए हर्ष की बात है, क्योंकि हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप में पिछले 20 वर्षों में जो उल्लेखनीय प्रगति हुई है, उसके मुख्य सूत्रधार आप ही रहे हैं।
Ваше превосходительство, 2021 год является важным для двусторонних отношений по разным причинам. В этом году мы отмечаем 50-летие договора о мире, дружбе и сотрудничестве между Индией и Советским Союзом от 1971 года, 2 десятилетия нашего стратегического партнерства. Поэтому мне очень приятно встретиться с вами в этом особом году, потому что за все достижения наших двусторонних отношений, за все эти достижения в нашем стратегическом партнерстве за последние 20 лет стоите именно вы.
पिछले कई दशकों में वैश्विक स्तर पर कई फंडामेंटल बदलाव आए, कई तरह के जियोपॉलिटिकल समीकरण उभरे, किंतु इन सभी वेरिएबल्स के बीच भारत रूस मित्रता एक कांस्टेंट रही है। दोनों देशों ने न सिर्फ एक दूसरे के साथ निसंकोच सहयोग किया है, एक दूसरे की सेंसिटिविटीज का भी विशेष ख्याल रखा है। यह सचमुच इंटरस्टेट दोस्ती का एक यूनिक और विश्वस्त मॉडल है।
На протяжении последних нескольких десятилетий на мировой арене было много фундаментальных изменений, перемен, возникали разные геополитическое формирование. Однако среди всех этих изменений то, что осталось неизменной, это российская индийская дружба. Обе наши страны не только сотрудничают друг с другом, но и относятся к чувствительностям друг друга с особой заботой. Это действительно уникальная и основанная на доверии модель межгосударственной дружбы.
एक्सेलेंसी 2021 हमारे स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के लिए भी विशेष है। आज हमारे विदेश एवं रक्षा मंत्रियों के बीच 2+2 डायलॉग की पहली बैठक हुई। इससे हमारे व्यवहारिक सहयोग को बढ़ाने का एक नया मैकेनिज्म शुरू हुआ है।
Ваше превосходительство, 2021 год является важным и для нашего стратегического партнерства. Сегодня состоялась первая встреча глав политических и оборонных ведомств в формате 2+2. Этим мы запустили еще один новый механизм для укрепления практического сотрудничества.
अफगानिस्तान और दूसरे क्षेत्रीय विषयों पर भी हम निरंतर संपर्क में रहे हैं। ईस्टर्न इकोनॉमिक फोरम और द व्लादिवोस्टोक समिट से शुरू हुई रीजनल पार्टनरशिप आज रशियन फार ईस्ट और भारत के राज्यों के बीच वास्तविक सहयोग में बदल रही है।
Мы были в регулярном контакте по Афганистану и по ряду других вопросах. Наше межрегиональное партнерство, которое началось на Восточном экономическом форуме и на нашем с вами саммите в Владивостоке, сейчас превращается в конкретное сотрудничество между Российским и Дальним Востоком и Штатами Индии.
आर्थिक क्षेत्र में भी अपने रिश्तों को और घनिष्ठ बनाने के लिए हम एक लॉन्ग टर्म विजन अपना रहे हैं। हमने 2025 तक $30 बिलियन के ट्रेड और $50 बिलियन के निवेश का लक्ष्य रखा है। इन लक्ष्यों तक पहुंचने के लिए हमें अपनी बिजनेस कम्युनिटीज को गाइड करना चाहिए।
Также в экономической сфере мы принимаем долгосрочное видение для укрепления наших отношений. Мы поставили цель увеличивать взаимный товарооборот до $30 миллиардов к 2025 году и увеличить взаимные инвестиции до $50 миллиардов. Для достижения этих целей мы должны ориентировать наше бизнес-сообщество.
विभिन्न सेक्टरों में आज भी हमारे समझौतों से इसमें मदद मिलेगी। मेक इन इंडिया कार्यक्रम के तहत को डेवलपमेंट और को प्रोडक्शन से हमारा रक्षा सहयोग और मजबूत हो रहा है। स्पेस और सिविल न्यूक्लियर क्षेत्रों में भी हमारा सहयोग आगे बढ़ रहा है।
Заключенные сегодня соглашения в разных сферах также нам помогут расширять наше сотрудничество. Наше оборонное сотрудничество укрепляется посредством совместной разработки и совместного производства в рамках нашей программы Make in India, Сделай в Индии. Также расширяется сотрудничество в сфере космоса и в сфере гражданской ядерной энергетики.
नेम में ऑब्जर्वर और IORA में डायलॉग पार्टनर बनने के लिए रूस को बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूँ। इन दोनों मंचों में रूस की उपस्थिति का समर्थन करना हमारे लिए खुशी की बात थी। अनेक क्षेत्रीय और वैश्विक मुद्दों पर भारत और रूस का एक जैसा मत है। आज की बैठक में हमें इन पर चर्चा करने का अवसर मिलेगा।
Хочу поздравить Россию с получением статуса наблюдателя в движении неприсоединения и также статус партнера по диалогу в рамках Ассоциации стран бассейна Индийского океана. Мы были рады поддерживать присутствие России на этих площадках. У Индии и России схожие позиции по многим региональным и глобальным вопросам. Сегодня в нашей встрече у нас будет возможность обменяться мнениями по всем этим вопросам.
एक्सेलेंसी एक बार फिर भारत में आपका स्वागत करता हूं, आपके डेलीगेशन का स्वागत करता हूं। इतनी व्यस्तता के बीच भी आपने भारत आने के लिए समय निकाला, ये हमारे लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। मुझे विश्वास है कि आज की चर्चा हमारे संबंधों के लिए बहुत उल्लेखनीय होगी। फिर एक बार आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Ваше превосходительство, еще раз добро пожаловать в Индию. Также хочу приветствовать всех членов российской делегации. Несмотря на ваш насыщенный график, вы нашли время посетить нас. Это для нас очень важно. Я уверен, что наши сегодняшние дискуссии будут весьма полезными для наших отношений. Еще раз добро пожаловать. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое, уважаемый господин премьер-министр, дорогой друг. Мне очень приятно быть снова в дружественной стране, в Индии.
Dear Prime Minister, dear friends, I'm so very happy to be able to travel here to visit the friendly country of India.
Мы проводим саммиты на высшем уровне регулярно, каждый год, поочередно и в Индии, и в России.
We're holding summits every year, taking turns in India and in Russia.
К сожалению, в прошлом году мы пропустили из-за пандемии.
Unfortunately, we had to skip last year because of the pandemic.
Но все равно наша очередь приезжать в Индию. Я благодарю вас за приглашение.
Still, it is our turn to travel to India, so I'd like to thank you for your invitation.
Мы относимся к Индии как к великой державе, с дружественным нам народом и с замечательной предысторией наших отношений.
We perceive India as a great power, a friendly nation, and a time-tested friend.
Отношения между нашими странами развиваются, устремлены в будущее.
The relations between our countries are developing and are looking into the future.
Если в прошлом году у нас наблюдался спад товарооборота на 17 с лишним процентов, то за первые 9 месяцев текущего года рост составил уже больше 38%.
Last year, the trade has decreased by 17%. This year, in the first 9 months of this year, we see an increase by 38%.
И у нас, безусловно, есть все возможности достичь тех уровней товарооборота, о которых вы сказали.
And naturally, we have every opportunity to reach the levels of trade that you have spoken before.
Это касается и инвестиционной деятельности.
And the same applies to investments.
Сейчас 38 миллиардов, примерно равно распределяется, чуть больше инвестиций с российской стороны.
Right now, the mutual investment stands at about 38 billion, with a bit more investments coming from the Russian side.
Но мы действительно сотрудничаем, работаем в очень важных, перспективных направлениях.
We are truly cooperating and working on very important and promising matters.
Это касается энергетики, это касается высоких технологий, включая космос.
That applies to the energy sector and high tech, including space.
И уверен, что здесь программы, о которых мы говорили, будут реализованы, в том числе и подготовка индийского космонавта.
And I think that the programs that we will be discussing here today will be implemented fully, including the training of Indian spacemen cosmonauts.
Мы работаем в военно-технической области, причем так, как не работаем с одним нашим партнером.
We also cooperate greatly in military and technical sphere, like with no other country.
Имею в виду, что мы вместе занимаемся разработками высокотехнологичной военной продукции и производством, в том числе в Индии.
By that I mean that we develop high technologies together as well as produce in India.
У нас есть еще очень важная повестка, которая, безусловно, представляет интерес как для Индии, так и для России. Я имею в виду все, что связано с заботой об окружающей среде.
We also have common important agenda that is of interest both to India and Russia, and by that I mean environmental cooperation.
Мы думаем об этом, думаем о зеленой повестке, о нашей экономике, о ее развитии.
We think about the green agenda and about the development of our economies.
Но, конечно, мы исходим из реалий, из потребностей наших экономик, из необходимости постоянно повышать уровень жизни наших граждан.
But naturally we proceed from the reality and the needs of our economies, that is to consistently increase the level of life for our citizens.
Мы продолжаем активно работать на международной арене, и, как вы сказали, действительно у нас наши позиции по очень многим вопросам совпадают.
We continue to cooperate jointly on global agenda, and as you have said, indeed our positions are quite similar or coincide.
Нас, безусловно, беспокоит все, что связано с терроризмом.
Naturally, we are concerned about everything that has to do with terrorism.
И борьбой с ним, даже как с наркотиками, с организованной преступностью.
I mean the fight against terrorism, also fighting drug trafficking and organized crime.
В этой связи, конечно, нас не может не беспокоить ситуация и то, как она развивается в Афганистане.
And with that regard, naturally, we are concerned about the developments of the situation in Afghanistan.
Ну и вот наши коллеги здесь, министр иностранных дел и министр обороны, это первая встреча в таком формате, но говорит о том, что мы продолжаем развивать отношения и на международной арене, и в военной сфере, непосредственно в военной сфере.
As we have our colleagues with us today, I mean foreign ministers and defense ministers, after their inaugural meeting, that means that we continue to develop our cooperation on international agenda and in the military sphere.
Мы проводим совместные военные учения.
We hold joint military exercises.
И на территории Индии, на территории России. Мы благодарны вам за это внимание к этой составляющей нашей работы.
We hold joint military exercises both on the Indian and Russian territory. I'd like to thank you for your attention to this component of our cooperation.
Намерены и дальше работать по этому направлению.
And we intend to work further on that matter.
И еще раз большое вам спасибо за приглашение.
Once again, thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you.
Made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin, and both sides, of course, apart from mentioning the Indo-Soviet Pact of 1971, also referring to the fact how there will have to be a broader consensus on different issues, and terrorism making a headline there as well. Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan tracking the latest on that crucial meeting. So, Geeta, we saw smiles and handshake and a body language that showed about as if two friends are walking in for a photo opportunity. But nevertheless, the issue is also about the defense sector. Defense partnership, terrorism, global stability. Take us through how should we now see this statement that has come in from both the Prime Minister and Russian President.
Well, a very important statement, because this is not just a statement about generic ties between India and Russia. They made some very specific points. Apart from the fact that they spoke about defense cooperation, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the two countries have faced challenges in recent times and yet continued to cooperate. He spoke about non-interference in others' internal matters. President Putin mentioned the same thing, spoke about common concerns when it comes to terrorism, the fact that we have a shared concern and views on many global issues, which also included the situation in Afghanistan. So both countries basically putting out a very strong political message as well, that their sovereignty is paramount and supreme, that territorial integrity is supreme. Non-interference is something that they really hold dear, and these are areas where both countries really see or are on the same page. Unlike many others who tend to comment on or look into the matters that are, or issues that are taking place, incidents that are taking place within India or within Russia. So the non-interference part being spelt out very explicitly by both leaders clearly shows where they stand when it comes to how the world or how the global community really is looking at these two countries. Having said that, they also spoke about, and in many ways than one, Pooja, spoke about autonomy, that there is a need for autonomy, the defense cooperation, and the fact that they'll continue to do that really spells out the autonomy which India is showing in deciding what is best in her national interests. And the conversation will continue on these fronts. We will see agreements that will be signed and a vision statement, that is the joint statement, which is going to be a very strong one.
Still more, that
again,
means the itinerary is still long. There will have to be more deals that will be signed, and Geeta Mohan will be getting us all the latest on that. So smiles and handshake there at the Hyderabad house between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Russian President, and we'll be getting you all the latest here on India Today. I'm heading into a very short break as we stay with these visuals. Remember, on the other side, we have some horrific incident and news coming in from Maharashtra's Aurangabad. We'll get you the latest on that after a break. A so-called honor killing in Aurangabad.
India Today Group, India's democratic newsroom.
watching India Today. You are
An incident so shocking in Maharashtra's Aurangabad that it is actually difficult to believe that it happens in modern India, and it is the case of so-called honor killing. A teenager boy beheaded his pregnant sister with the help of their mother in a case, according to them, to save honor of the family. What happened? Police told India Today TV the boy chopped off the head of his 19-year-old sister who had apparently eloped with a man earlier this year. He then beheaded her, allegedly displayed her head before the neighbors. So killing and that shocker was not enough. He went around with the head of the sister. The victim had eloped in June and had been living with her husband. Last week, the mother contacted her and asked her to visit her again. A police official has now said that the victim's brother has surrendered before them and was taken into arrest along with the mother. And remember, the boy is only a teenager. So what kind of perhaps the culture, the patriarchy that still exists here in different parts of the country, that a teenager boy willing to behead his sister?
5 महिन्यापूर्वी आम्ही ना आळंदी येथे जाऊन प्रेम विवाह केला होता. अच्छा. याच्यापूर्वी ते घरी येऊन गेले होते. याच्यापूर्वी 8 दिवसापूर्वी तिची आई आली होती. ती म्हणे काही नाही बाई, मी पप्पाला सांगते, असं तसं गोड गोड बोलली. मग आज येऊन असं केलं त्यांनी.
21/6/21 रोजी प्रेम विवाह केला होता. त्याचा राग मनात धरून कीर्तीचा भाऊ संकेत आणि तिची आई शोभा मोठे यांनी 12 वाजता येऊन घरात घुसून आईने कीर्तीचे पाय धरले व भावाने तिचा कोयत्याने गळा कापून शिर बाहेर आणून वरांड्यात ठेवले.
Absolutely shocking incident coming in from Aurangabad in Maharashtra. After the break, our special show, Political Pradesh. Remember, this time today is the anniversary of the Babri Mosque demolition. But now it is coinciding with a fresh appeal of the Hindu right-wing outfits, not for Ayodhya, but for Mathura. What is the ground status of the Krishna Janmabhoomi face-off in Mathura, where Section 144 imposed? That after a break.
We have over 45,000 animals here across 60 exhibits, 10 zones, and the journey takes around about 2 hours to complete.
watching India Today. You are...
Today is the anniversary of the Babri Mosque demolition, but an uneasy calm prevails in Mathura, the holy city, also considered as the Krishna Janmabhoomi. And the relation here is that now the Hindu right-wing outfits have said and appealing to the government to let them place the deity, an idol of Krishna, at the Shahi Eidgah, which is a mosque right adjacent to the temple, and many believe that that is where the original temple was. This is becoming a big controversy. Section 144 is imposed in Mathura. Our colleague, National Affairs Editor Rahul Srivastav is on ground zero to get you a latest update on what is it like in Mathura today.
These are sights and sounds of a dispute being concocted. The narrow gauge rail track for the Mathura Vrindavan pilgrimage train is off limits. Every arterial road and lane around the Krishna Janmabhoomi temple in Mathura barricaded. Mathura and its residents are anxious, as half a dozen unknown groups have threatened to widen the fault line between two adjoining places of worship, Krishna Janmabhoomi temple and Shahi Eidgah, and their followers. Police say the state government has ordered zero tolerance to trouble.
मथुरा जो है एक ब्रिज नगरी है और यहाँ से हमेशा एक प्रेम का संदेश पूरी दुनिया को गया है और इसी परंपरा को कायम रखते हुए पुलिस और प्रशासन का लगातार जनता से जो हमारे धर्मगुरु हैं उनके साथ हमारा लगातार संवाद रहता है। इस विषय पर भी सबने शांति व्यवस्था बनाए रखने के लिए अपील भी किया है, हमारा सहयोग भी किया है।
Police fights a battle at multiple fronts. It's approaching elders of the two communities. Those posting objectionable content on social media are being warned. The huge deployment brings partial relief to city's people. They fear Mathura could be the next political Ayodhya. There are signs of anxiety, and more Muslims have been visiting the mosque since the threats were made.
Are the Muslims worried?
Exactly. Because of two reasons. Because they have seen the times and the wives and the daughters and the little children. They are much worried. God forbid what happens, what takes place in case the huge number of the majority community comes up and they are not being stopped by the forces. There is perfect peace in the city.
Mathura stayed peaceful while Ayodhya simmered, courtesy a 1968 peace accord between the Hindus and Muslims. Harmony ensured peaceful social and economic coexistence. Muslims supply flowers for the Krishna temple. The zari chunri or drapes for female deities are crafted by the Muslims. Pappu Bhai, a Muslim, runs a workshop that supplies the shiny crowns for thousands of Krishna idols in Mathura and Vrindavan. He even makes the jeweled crown for the deity at the Krishna Janmabhoomi temple. He doesn't want disharmony but is against the claim for the mosque's land.
पप्पू साहब ये बताइए, आप ये जो बनाते हैं ये किसके लिए बनाते हैं?
लड्डू गोपाल के लिए।
लड्डू गोपाल कौन है?
लड्डू गोपाल
भगवान कृष्ण है, यानी हिंदुओं के भगवान।
हाँ।
तो ये बताइए कि आप सिर्फ ऐसे छोटे छोटे बना के बेचते हैं कि
मतलब मैं 0 नंबर से लेके जितने भी बड़े होंगे, जितने भी बड़े से बड़े होंगे 100 के मुकुट बना दूंगा।
अभी अचानक ये झगड़े की बात आ रही है कि साहब कृष्ण जन्मभूमि की जो जमीन है जहाँ शाही ईदगाह खड़ी है वो जमीन चाहिए लोगों को।
तो वो जमीन कैसे मिलेगी? ये साहब मुझे वो तो हमारी है, तो हमारी रहेगी।
Ayodhya suffered due to the Ram Temple Babri Mosque tussle for decades. But Mathura has stories of prosperity and tourism that sustains virtually every Mathura home. Brijwasi Sweets is Mathura's own success story. Its owner, like all businessmen in the city, is battling for peace, not the color of his faith.
यहाँ पर किसी तरीके की कोई परेशानी किसी को नहीं हो रही है। यहाँ का एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और पुलिस दोनों कोऑर्डिनेशन से काम कर रहे हैं। साथ के साथ यहाँ की जनता भी उस सहयोग में भागीदार है। सब लोग ये चाहते हैं कि यहाँ अयोध्या जैसी स्थिति उत्पन्न नहीं हो और निश्चित रूप से अयोध्या जैसी स्थिति उत्पन्न नहीं होगी।
In Mathura, the Christian Janmabhoomi temple and the Shahi Eidgah have coexisted for a period much longer than any devotee who walks up the steps for blessings. In the city, the Ayodhya playbook, it seems, is being deployed. An emotive issue from the backyards of history is being rolled out into a playground called electoral politics. In Mathura, with Vinod, Rahul Srivastava for India Today.
And remember, this is primarily the timing also of the controversy, and that is, of course, with Uttar Pradesh heading for elections in just about few months. And while there are Hindu outfits and even the Bharatiya Janata Party, the UP Deputy Chief Minister Keshav Prasad Maurya, who had backed the mandir called the Samajwadi Party, is calling it primarily an attempt to polarize voters. Remember, Yadav vote bank comprises about 10 to 12% in Uttar Pradesh and does form of major significance. So is it an attempt for political vote bank, or is it simply about historical wrongs that are being undone, as many within the BJP and also the Hindu right-wing outfits are also elaborating? But for now in Mathura, as you can see, security has been tightened, Section 144 has been imposed, and no outfit will be allowed to place an idol at the Shahi Eidgah. And remember, this is already now becoming a big political controversy. And in the political Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath is leading with the rallies and the speech, and today he was in Azamgarh. And the visuals that have come in, of course, UP Chief Minister trying to have a show of strength there. And this time, why is Azamgarh important? He's addressed a rally in the Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav's stronghold area. Yogi Adityanath took on Akhilesh, saying that his government broke the Gunda Raj that was prevalent in Samajwadi Party's rule. Yogi has said that Azamgarh was Atankgarh, which appears to be translated loosely to a hotbed of terrorism before 2017. He further proposed that Azamgarh should now be called Aryamgarh. So all sorts of name changes also now being referred to by Yogi Adityanath in Azamgarh today, attacking Akhilesh Yadav.
ये जो माफिया पहले मऊ के अंदर दंगा कराते थे, आजमगढ़ को बदनाम करते थे, आज आप देख रहे होंगे सार्वजनिक संपत्ति पर कहीं भी कब्जा कर लेते थे। आजमगढ़ समाजवादी पार्टी की सरकार में आतंक का गढ़ बन गया था। यहां के नौजवानों के सामने पहचान का संकट आ खड़ा हो गया था। वे देश के अंदर कहीं जाते थे, धर्मशाला में कमरा नहीं मिलता था, होटल में पैसा देने के बावजूद भी कि अब वहां पर कोई कमरा नहीं मिल पाता था। लेकिन भाइयों बहनों, आजमगढ़ को इस आतंक के कलंक से मुक्त करने का कार्य भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार ने किया है। महान हिंदू सम्राट के नाम पर भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने देश के यशस्वी गृह और सहकारिता मंत्री के कर कमलों से आजमगढ़ में विश्वविद्यालय की स्थापना करके आतंक के कलंक से मुक्त करने और आजमगढ़ को उसकी सही पहचान आर्यमगढ़ देने का काम भी करते हैं। आजमगढ़ के नौजवान आजमगढ़ के बाहर जाते थे, पहचान का संकट खड़ा हो गया था। कोई धर्मशाला में कमरा नहीं देता था, होटल में आजमगढ़ का नाम लेते ही लोग कह देते भैया यहां कमरा नहीं, रूम खाली नहीं। भाइयों बहनों, ये पहचान का संकट किसने खड़ा किया था? ये पहचान का संकट उन्हीं लोगों ने किया था जिन लोगों ने कोरोना कालखंड में आजमगढ़ के लोगों को लावारिस छोड़ दिया।
On the sidelines of in the election-bound state of Uttar Pradesh, in Ghaziabad, an interesting event took place. Former chairperson of the Waqf Board, Shia Waqf Board, Wasim Rizvi, today accepted Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma in a ceremony that was held at the Dasna Devi in Uttar Pradesh. The ceremony was presided by the chief priest of the Dasna Devi, and now it appears that Wasim Rizvi, the former chairperson of the Shia Waqf Board, will likely now be known as Jitendra Narayan Singh Tyagi. And as you can see, these are the visuals that are of the ceremony. Forehead smeared with sandalwood paste and tilak. Wasim Rizvi could now also be called as Jitendra Narayan Singh Tyagi, has now converted to Hinduism. After the short break, I'll get you updates from another election-bound state of Punjab. Heightened political activity, and importantly, what are Sidhu and Channi saying? And Captain Amrinder Singh launching his party office today. Did Praneeth Kaur, his wife, attend the inauguration? We'll get you the latest on that after a break.